So we have it on our YouTube channel. And here we go. All right, so we are holding, today is Thursday. We got to go back a little bit for the Chumash because we missed the last few verses from yesterday's Chumash. So we'll just go back a little bit. It's a fairly shorter Chumash than the other days. And we're going to conclude how to cure the leper. So we said an interesting concoction and potion yesterday's class. I don't want to go into all the details, but basically we said that when the guy has been cleaned of his leprosy, his taras, his spiritual, it's not regular sickness, it's not a medical thing, it's a spiritual thing. When the guy is cured, he doesn't have any more blotches on him, he goes to the kohen takes two birds, right? And we said he takes two birds, and he takes a piece of cedar tree, he takes a piece of wool, takes some grasses, a bundle of grasses, dips them in the blood of one of the slaughtered birds, lets the bird free, sprinkles that on the leper, and that is what purifies the leper and makes him able to go back home, but he still can't be intimate with his wife, still has to separate for another 7 days, and he's not allowed to go into the temple. On the 8th day after that, waits another 7 days, but he's living among his house, just he's not being intimate with his wife, and he's not allowed to eat holy things, not allowed to go back in the temple. He waits another 7 days back home, and then he does this second procedure that we're going to talk about today. Going to sprinkle blood in some interesting places. I didn't have a chance, it was very rushed before class, to go into the reasons why. I know a lot of times you like to know it. I don't know, but at least we'll share the facts, so we have at least that. On the 8th day, after he waited 7 days, he should take 2 sheep, 2 male sheep, and 1 female sheep, within a year old, a young sheep, 2 male and 1 female, because he's going to bring 3 sacrifices. He did something very bad. He gossiped and caused harm, and he wants to be forgiven. So now he's going to bring 3 sheep. He's going to bring a guilt offering, a sin offering. There are 2 kinds of sin offerings. A guilt and a sin, like we've learned at length a few parshas ago. And he's also going to bring a burnt offering, which is the follow-up gift to remake his connection strong again with Hashem. So he's going to bring 3 sacrifices, 2 male and 1 female, depending on which one it is. That decides if it's the male one or female one. We're not getting into the sacrifices, things, just talking about the leper person now. And always together with the sacrifices, not always, in this unique case, he will take Shleisha Esroinim Soilas. He's going to bring his sacrifice with another gift, a smaller gift together with it, and they will bring the fine flour offering. So to come together with it, he will bring a meal offering, which we learned about at length in the sacrifices. Here, he's coming a double gift with a second gift with each of the sacrifices. So he's taking 3 measurements of the meal offering, of a flour offering, coming together with each of the sacrifices. Belula Bashemen, those meal offerings, the flour offerings, will have mixed with oil, right? The oil makes it juicy and fat and so on and look good. But in addition, unique to here, he's going to bring a little bottle, he's going to bring a little bottle of oil, which is really not common by any other sacrifices. It's unique to this person. So we have 2 male sheep, 1 female sheep, 3 things of flour coming with each of the animals that are being brought as a sacrifice, and also a little jar of oil. Let's see what he does with them. And the kohen will stand up. Will stand up. The man who's coming, right? He wants to be pure. He came to the Beis Hamikdash. He's like, I want to come back. I did already the first part of what I need to do. Let's finish up. Let's get this done. Let me become fully pure. Here's he stands him with all he has a lot with him. He has 3 animals. He has a jar of oil, and he has a flour offerings mixed with oil, and he goes and he stands them up before Hashem. However, as Rashi tells us here, he's not allowed to go into the temple. It's a horrible sin if he enters the temple. Why is it a horrible sin if he enters the temple? Because he's impure. He's not holy. He's impure. He's not a holy person. So he stands right by the door. He's not allowed to even go in the doorway because the doorway is considered holy. He just sticks, as you're going to see, 3 parts of his body into the doorway. He sticks his ear, just his ear. He sticks his thumb on his right hand, and he sticks his big toe on his right foot. That's all that he sticks inside that entranceway. Otherwise, he makes sure not to go in because he would be violating the severe violation had his rest of his body gone in, because he's not allowed to enter the temple. He's not pure. He hasn't brought the sacrifice that he needs to bring. So he brings all these animals, these 3 animals, verse 12, and the kohen takes the sheep, takes one of them, takes one of the sheep, the male one, right? There's 2 male sheep. He takes one of the 2 male sheep, and he brings them as the guilt offering, right? I said there was 2 the male sheep are going to bring us two different sin. One is the sin offerings, one's the guilt offering, and we learned this at length in the sacrifices. He brings the one that's the guilt offering, and he gives it to the kohen. The kohen takes from him the male, one of the male sheep. And he takes the little jar of oil that he has there. He takes a little jar of oil that he has. And he does something he commonly does to sacrifices, but not always are they alive. He often does it when they're dead or with pieces of meat. Here he's taking the live male sheep. Okay, and he's taking the little jug of oil and he waves them. Remember, we learned about waving. Hashem's in all the directions. Whatever, he waves the animal together with the oil. Okay, and where a live animal together with the oil does, it almost sounds like kaparis a little bit, like we do kaparis over the head. But he does this in all the directions of the earth, and he waves the little jug of oil together with the sheep in front of God, in front of Hashem. Okay. And then he goes and he starts the general common procedure. We're going to start how normal sacrifices are done. He goes and he slaughters the sheep, the guilt offering sheep. Where does he slaughter it? In the same place. This guilt offering is slaughtered to the north. Right when you enter the sanctuary, the courtyard, you make a right, you go there, and that's where the sin offering and the guilt and all the other sin offerings and burnt offerings, where do you slaughter them? There's a designated area in the courtyard that's to the north. You go inside the door, you make a right over there, you slaughter this guilt offering. Rashi says, well, of course you slaughter it to the north. That's how you do all guilt offerings. All guilt, sin, and burnt offerings are all slaughtered to the north. Why is it that you're saying that here it's slaughtered in the north like everything else? So Rashi says, you know why? Because it's a funny case here. This is the case which the guy comes to the door. He's not allowed to enter the temple. He has to stand outside the door, and he's bringing a sacrifice. You might have thought maybe we should slaughter it outside where the owner is. The owner is not allowed to come in at all. Maybe this one by the mitzvah, the leper offer, has to be brought outside the door because the owner's there. So he's telling you, no, keep everything status quo. Goes in the north. You enter the courtyard. The kohen, even though the owner's not there, the kohen goes and he slaughters the animal in the north, as we discussed in our sacrifice class. Why the north? An interesting reason we brought up. We're not discussing that point today. This asham sacrifice, this guilt offering, this has to be done by the kohen. You have to treat it exactly like the sin offerings, and don't treat it any different. It should be treated like the regular sin offerings. This leper's guilt offering should be done there. Now, I'm just going to explain something in an overall, because we learned this. Rashi says from here to guilt and sin offerings, and here's the rule. There was a line, if you remember there was a mesh line on the altar. When we discussed in detail the different pieces of holy furniture in the temple, we discussed that there was an outer altar, and that's where all the sacrifices were burnt, and the slaughtering was done out near them outside. And then we said the blood was one of the main important parts of the sacrifice that's being done. It was very important. There was a mesh fencing, kind of a round design around the altar in the middle of it, with a border on top of that mesh. And depending on which sacrifice you were sprinkling its blood, it really made a difference whether you sprinkle the blood on top of the border or below the border. Okay, it really made a big difference where it was. The asham guilt offering, if it was that kind, because it was two kinds of sin offerings, a sin one and a guilt one. The guilt one was always done below, and the sin one was done on top. Okay, this one has to be done, the chatas and the where it was, has this one, I believe he's telling you, has to be treated like the sin offering, I believe. I'm not sure, but the blood, I think maybe he's telling you that the blood has to stay with the status quo of the asham offering. It has to be sprinkled where it's always sprinkled, even though we're going to do something weird different with the blood now. You still have to sprinkle the asham blood on bottom. Okay, so keep the status quo. Everything has to stay where it is, even though we're going to do other things. And here we're going to learn what are the other things that we do with these sin offerings. Okay, so here we go. Verse 14. This is the difference. The kohen will take some of this blood now, after it's sprinkled on the altar. It was slaughtered in the north. It was sprinkled on the altar, below the line. Sticks his finger he'll take some of the blood, and the kohen will place it, as Rashi says, he put it on the cartilage, the middle of the ear. He'll take some of the blood and put it on the middle of the ear of the kohen, on his right ear. And then he'll take some of that blood, which is not done almost anywhere else, I'll put some of the blood from that slaughtering on his left thumb, on his right thumb, and on his right foot, on the big toe. He will take some of the blood and sprinkle it over there. This guy who was a leper, who purified, who gossiped and got leprosy, he will get some of the blood from the animal he's bringing to ask forgiveness for Hashem for the grave sin of gossiping about his fellow Jew, will now get blood on those 3 areas of his body. His ear will be sticking in, if I understood Rashi correctly, inside just his ear and his thumb and his big toe will be sticking inside the cord because the rest of his body is not allowed to be, he's not pure yet, and the kohen will sprinkle some of the blood. He stood by the door, Rashi tells us, called Nicanor's gate. It's a whole story, fascinating story about this door, who bought the door and how it got there to the doorway, but anyway, we're not getting to that now. Now, another interesting thing. Remember, he brought a little jar of oil. Take the little jar of oil. And he'll pour it onto his left hand. Take some of that oil, pours the oil that the guy brought. Remember, he brought 3 animals, and he brought 3 flour offerings and a little jug of oil, and he pours some of the oil on his left hand. So they pour it into another kohen's left hand, and then the kohen sticks his right finger in his palm, which has the oil. Sticks his right hand finger into the oil that's on his left hand. And he'll sprinkle in the direction of the Holy of Holies. He'll stand there and he'll sprinkle 7 times, stick his finger inside his left palm, get some of the oil that's there, sprinkling it towards in the direction of the Kodesh Kodashim, the Kodesh Kodashim. But he still got leftover oil in his hand, right? He didn't finish with the oil. And now there's still leftover oil. He didn't sprinkle everything that was in his palm. That's in his palm. He'll take some of that oil, stick his finger, I guess, back in, and stick it inside his right ear. Same place, the middle section of his right ear. Take oil now, put it on top of his right thumb. His large toe on his right foot. Aldam Asham in the same place on the blood, or the same, even if the blood's not there anymore, it fell down somehow, slipped, the water went down. We're going to see later. You can just stick it on that area. Same year, very specific. It's interesting. I want to look up why I didn't get a chance. Why these things are important. But anyway, this body had leper, was a leprosy body. He's getting this now. By Neiser B'Shem, and he takes the leftover oil that's in his left palm. What does he do with all the leftovers? Because he sprinkled 7 times against the Holy of Holies. He's put it in the ear, toe, and big toe and thumb of the guy. What does he do with the leftover oil in the palm? Yitan al Roish, he takes it and he puts it on top of the head of the leper who's now becoming pure. Chipra al Vakoyin, and he'll forgive for him the Fnei Hashem in front of Hashem. And that, my friends, is most of the procedure we'll read as we finish off. That takes place, fascinating procedure that takes place to purify the guy who was a leper, and so on. And then he just finishes off. Remember, there's two more sacrifices. There's the chatas, there's the sin offering, which is number 2. I believe it's the second male, right? Second one was the guilt, one was the sin. Forgives from the purity that he had. Now he's doing like a forgiveness sin. He was and he slaughters the 3rd offering, the burnt offering, the 3 different offerings he brings. The kohen brings up the burnt offering and the flour offering together with it. Onto the altar, and now he is pure. And that is, my friend, the end of the basic concoction and procedure to free the leper from his impure state. But what happens, as today's Chumash continues, in short, similar procedure, if he's a poor guy, who can afford 3 sheep? It's not that cheap. The guy has Rabbi Gordon, people share Rabbi Gordon's class. If you can't afford to sin, don't sin, right? That's the solution. But what happens if you sin and you don't have the money to go to the market, to the Beis HaMikdash market, and go pick up 2 male offerings, 2 male sheep, a female sheep? It's got to rack up a bill. You're putting it on your credit card or so. And what if you don't have the room on your credit card to put it on? You can't afford it. So there's a solution. 2 out of the 3 could be birds. First one, the guilt offering, that status procedure, that standard has to stay the same. Verse 21, if he's poor, and his hand can't afford it, right? Credit cards are maxed out, whatever, or he has no more money in the bank card's maxed out. You can take only 1 sheep, go to the market and buy 1 sheep. That's the guilt offering, the asham. The tnufa that's going to be waved. Remember, I told you that they waved that with the oil, the chapra olav, yisar and silas, and you now need, together with that animal sacrifice, you need the flour that goes with it. 1, not 3, because you're going to bring 2 birds. You bring 1 flour offering, and that flour has to be mixed in oil. You got to make sure you have the oil with the flour, so it looks nice and holy and wealthy, good. The mincha v'light shaman, you still got to also bring the little pitcher of oil. So you got to still bring one animal, 1 flour mixed with oil, and your little jug of oil. That's standard procedure. That must go. We can't give you a break on that. You're going to need the oil to put on the ear and the toe, whatever, as Rashi says, and so on. And you need the meal offering to go together with the sheep. So that's standard. However, you could then bring 2 birds. Either young doves or older doves, depending on what you could afford. You go to the store and you want to buy it, you can choose younger or older ones, depending on whatever you could afford. Those 2 birds will take place of those 2 animals. One will be the sin and one will be the burnt offering. So the guilt offering, standard. The sin and the burnt offering, those can be interchangeable with birds. And again, the 8th day, after he already brought his 2 birds, with remember the first procedure where he brought 2 birds and he stuck the cedar wood and the thing into the blood and let the bird fly away. After that, this is the second process to fully purify him, holy him. He goes to the door and he stands in front of the door with his sheep, 2 birds now that he has in the second procedure. Kohen takes standard procedure, the guilt offering, that's a sheep, and his little jug of oil, the lug of oil. Kohen goes and he waves them in all the directions in front of Hashem. Shachad, verse 25. Shachad is the kavod of Hashem, and he slaughters just like he did before, the guilt offering. The Kohen, again, like we said before, stick the blood. Nochon doesn't have to you got to put it in the right ear. Got to put it on the right thumb. Got to put it on the big toe on the right foot. And then he does the same thing. And you take the little jug of oil, pour it on your left hand. He's at a Kohen Betzvah. Kohen will take it with his finger. That's on his palm. First he'll sprinkle it in front of Hashem 7 times, and then he'll follow up with the sheath. He'll take from the oil in his hand, put the oil where he put the blood before. Even as Rashi says, the blood's not remaining, it dried up or went away by the time he got there. Still, you put the oil in that area. It's not necessary for the blood to be there, just necessary that it be in the right location, which is the ear, and the is his thumb of his right hand and his big toe of his right foot for some reason. That's what you got to do. The same area where the blood was before. And what do we do with the oil? The same thing we said before. The leftover oil in his left palm, takes the whole palm of oil and sticks it on the guy's head. To forgive for Hashem. And he takes the left 2 birds, one of the two doves he has, either the younger or the older one, whatever he could afford. It's a shetasi gadei. The oil uses one as a burnt offering, one as burnt offering, one as a sin offering, which we learned about when we described the different sacrifices. Alamincha, after he brought the meal offering for the animal, so he brings the animal, he brings the meal offering, and now he's bringing the 2 birds. The Kohen will forgive under Hashem. Zois Torah, this is the Torah. Of a person. These are the studies of a person that has leprosy. You cannot afford it to pay the price that's going for it. And that is the remedy and the interesting cure that the Torah tells us is done with the leper. Any questions or comments on today's interesting topic of the end procedure of purifying the leper and what a poor man who cannot afford it, who spoke gossip, needs to do? He still has to pay a nice amount, but not as much as the guy who could afford it. Yes, Gregory, I see you unmuted yourself there.
Is this the only offering that they're supposed to take alive and wave in front of animal wise, not substances? For animals, is this the only time that we keep them alive and wave them?
I don't remember. I don't know. I don't remember I'm trying to think. Where we had I think when they anointed Aaron as a Kohen, didn't they also put it on his thumb and his toe? Do you remember if we did that there? I'm not remembering if that was. I was trying to think if that was. I feel like
I remember they did the oil on the head and stuff like that, but I don't remember them actually taking the animal and keeping it alive and waving it. I know, right.
I don't know. Interesting question. I don't know. I don't remember.
The only reason I'm asking is that because, I'm trying to think of this lamb who's, I'm trying to picture the lamb being, I've been part of the.
Waving doesn't mean like a paras. Waving doesn't mean like a paras. Waving means like this, just going back and forth.
Gently, moving the thing around.
Yeah. By the way, if you see how I run kaparas here, I also do it very gentle with the birds. I'm not. I don't like the way people swing the birds around their head. We do kaparas.
Yeah, because I was thinking the animal goes number 2 while this is going on a lot of times, and everybody's ducking to try to not get hit with it.
No, I don't think it's not on top of your head. Sorry, maybe I confused by comparing it, but it's not at all the same procedure. I'm just saying it's alive, but it's waved I believe front and back, we said, maybe right, left, up and down, but that doesn't mean you're flying it. I don't like the way people do kaparas with the chickens myself.
Okay.
We have baskets when we do it. We put the chickens in baskets. Or I actually, when I'll hold the chicken, I'll hold the wings and the feet together, so it's not being pulled by the wings, and I'll do it gently with the thing. It doesn't have to be done. There's no mitzvah of torturing the bird while you're doing it.
Right, because I would think it like kind of takes away from the mitzvah.
I don't like it. I don't like when people do that.
Okay.
Not in my nature.
Good. No, that's amazing. That's beautiful. I have to watch this now.
There are people there that do it now, like whatever. Okay.
I started doing it with the money because it was too much. I didn't.
Yeah, you don't have to do it like that. No. I don't like that way either. I'm with you, man. Yes. Any other questions or comments before we move on? Okay. All right. Let's go on to Shuki. It's good to see